Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the session. It's funny because when I was first asked to present at the conference, I naturally thought I would be on the mobile track. And they said, no, actually, I think it would be a good idea if you could think about how mobile data collection feeds into big data. And I've kind of been cursed and blessed with the fact that I have two kind of hyped up words in the industry with no real definition. So from my perspective, I'll just share with you, let me get this, what we believe big data is as it relates to mobile data collection. Green? Just to frame the context, obviously you guys have probably seen this chart a million times. According to IBM, the end user community creates about 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. And my 4-year-old asked me, is that bigger than Googleplexian in terms of the largest number? And that's 90% of all the data in the world today. The most fascinating piece of this fact is that 90% of that data was created in the last 2 years, which is amazing. And that trajectory is just going to continue to increase as we get more and more access to different types of data. So in the good old days, we've all kind of been a part of it. We used to be able to ask respondents about their attitudes, their behaviors, and their opinions. It was very simple, and we trusted what they said. Sure, we had some questionnaire traps in there to kind of get the cheaters out of the surveys, but there really was no question. This was the traditional method of how we were going to collect data and really understand how our products and services were accepted in the marketplace. The world's changed, as you guys know. We're all a reflection of that. Everybody's on the mobile phone. They're connected 24/7. I think you saw in the early morning session, we're all connected. We have multiple devices. We're on the go. And it's very difficult to get somebody to wait to get to their PC and respond to a survey and really be able to capture that feedback. Not only that, as we have our clients always asking, well, what about all this other data that you can collect? How does that feed into the survey responses? And so our perspective really is that mobile is the hub for big data. If you think about it, the mobile device is always with the consumer. It allows us to get passive information in terms of the location of where a consumer might be. It allows us to get purchase details in terms of what a consumer is purchasing. You can get timestamp, day part, again, all through the mobile data, all through the mobile devices. We can capture imagery through pictures. We have also the metering technology in terms of understanding what ads have been served, what people have viewed. You can link the data into other retail databases. And of course, you still can ask the consumer about their opinions and attitudes, but we're not solely reliant on these solely reliant in terms of asking or framing what the context was in terms of how they're collecting, how their experience is. There's other pieces of information. You can also link social media listening. You can scan barcodes to get information through the mobile device. And obviously, you can capture video through the mobile device. So when we think about big data as it relates to mobile, the mobile is the connection to the consumer. And big data allows us to connect to multiple databases and other types of information that traditionally we wouldn't be able to get to. Again, this might not be the terabytes of information that we're talking about, but it's one point of view to really narrow the slice of what big data means in terms of the context of market research. So today we add the power of passive data, and here's just some examples in terms of the different types of information we can capture. So again, if a consumer is mobilely enabled through our mobile app, you can obviously capture the geolocation coordinates. You can get the timestamp in terms of where they specifically are, at what time of day they are at a specific location. Check-ins, obviously you can understand where they're checking in, Foursquare, Facebook. And then the image capture. There's a lot of information that we're capturing as people upload images in terms of where exactly they are, their location. And it really does serve for us to be another data quality or validation point for us to kind of, again, frame the context of where that consumer might be. So the implications thus far, and again, this is a lens of actual work that we've done to give you concrete examples, and also to understand what does this mean as it relates to the world of research. Here's a swath of different types of research that we're all very familiar with and we participate in some way, shape, or form throughout our careers. And we looked at it from the perspective of leveraging mobile as a way to collect data, but also then overlaying other pieces of information connected to the mobile information. And here's the area that we've really focused. And I think what everybody agrees is we're not there yet. I don't know if we're ever will be there, because as technology evolves, things continue to change. But in our experience thus far, these are the areas that are highlighted in blue are the areas that we really have experienced the linkage between mobile data collection and linking to other databases or other big data types. Retail validation, path to purchase. Again, customer satisfaction, mystery shopping. We don't necessarily say that today this is going to replace what everybody's doing in terms of traditional consumer data collection. But what it does is it provides an alternative. There's too many times in the world of big data and kind of traditional market research where we are being asked to compare old versus new. And we continue to say that the reality is you can't compare the two. There's different sources of information. There's different types of feedback that we're getting. And so this is kind of a complement to what you're doing existing in the marketplace today. So what we thought we'd do is share with you some studies that we've done recently, which is really grounded in mobile. And we've linked to other databases to kind of provide an additional layer of insight to our clients. We'll share with you kind of what the base study is today, but also as our team thinks about it, what is the future potential in terms of what we can do with each of these case studies? We've kind of painted an imagine a world if we could do this. So again, this is a study that we did for the Milk Marketing Board. We did on-site data collection for a new occasion that they're marketing, which is the use of chocolate milk as a recovery beverage. We went to Ironman and rock and roll events and collected information from qualified consumers or their target segments, performance athletes, to understand what are they doing in terms of recovery today. All through mobile data capture. We actually collected information from over 1,200 people, and we got feedback from, and actually similar studies to this, we got great feedback from the ever so important millennium generation. So again, just to give you an idea in terms of the types of information, we asked consumers to take pictures of themselves to provide us a little bit of feedback in terms of who they are. And we went through, again, traditional surveys, but just executed on a mobile phone. We asked them about the awareness and benefits of chocolate milk, the importance of the factors that they look for in a recovery beverage, what's used most often, and reasons for not using chocolate milk. Very traditional stuff, optimized for the mobile phone. So what the other pieces of information that we actually linked into is, in terms of security check, we actually asked consumers to input their bib number. So every time people run a race, they have to have a bib number. We actually could link that bib number to the consumer demographics of that person. And that added a whole nother layer of information in terms of who these people were. If you can imagine, we can then add additional dimensions of information in terms of household composition, and I'll get to that in a moment. We did picture upload, and again, this was after the race. Tell us how you felt. Tell us how you felt after the recovery of that beverage, after you tried the chocolate milk after the finish line. And then we complemented with the survey responses that we collected on site. So as we talked to Milk Pepper, the marketing board for fluid milk, we actually asked them, talk to them about future things that we could actually capture through this approach. Obviously, the bib number validation was, they really valued that because we didn't necessarily get gamers and people taking surveys from random places. But what they said was, could you scrub and try to get other race information on these people? Their performance times, did they actually complete the race? So you could get an understanding of how intense are these athletes truly in terms of participating in, did they actually really participate in 3 Ironmans? Or can we get the data in terms of their performance through each of the different databases that we linked into? They asked about social listening. Is there a way that we could link into their Facebook and other social platforms to be able to listen to see how many people actually communicated the benefits of chocolate milk? And again, this is not done today, but this is something that they've asked us to look at, to be able to link in other pieces of information to kind of contextualize the information. A pen to household information. One of the things that we had to do for the study was to ask name and address to validate their incentive. High level of trust, huge. And as consumers started to participate in the survey, they trusted us as a company because the reality was people started saying, "Hey, I got my code, my incentive immediately." And as a result, we were able to capture this really valuable information and being able to then do reverse appends to other databases to kind of layer out that person in terms of other information, in terms of family composition and where they live. And again, not to be minimized, we still collect information from a consumer perspective in terms of their attitudes and other behaviors as it relates to recovery beverages. So it was quite powerful, and this is something on the docket that we're talking about in terms of adding all these other layers of information. Not to say Paradigm's doing all of that, but that's something that we have to think through. Another example was we did, for some confection manufacturers, understanding Valentine's Day shopper experience, really basic qualitative information. We had consumers go out and take pictures of their favorite Valentine's Day promotion. And we put it into a portal. People could look at the pictures. They could get their demographics. I got to speed up, sorry. Look at their demographics and then ultimately see open-ended comments in terms of what their displays look like. And I'll just go through this. As we think about the future for Halloween and Valentine's coming up, we can actually now identify where that consumer is going to be in terms of a radius, append it to a TD Links database, and understand competitive set in terms of the stores that they chose to buy their candy at versus not. In the moment, we can capture that. We can have them scan the products. Again, as they scan the items for purchase, if it's a new item, we can actually real-time feed another survey and understand the drivers for that purchase of that product. And then, obviously, we can link it to the demographics and attitudes of that consumer. And much more. So implications, very quickly. It changes the respondent experience altogether. We're now not asking to describe context. We're asking them to actually trust us. And as we capture hard data from other databases, we're going to probe more deeply in terms of attitudinal information. This is huge in terms of how we deal with our panelists and consumers. The role and function of technology is critical. It's almost as technology cannot be in a silo. They have to be linked together because now we're building in new databases, new processes, and other development that is really built not just as a routine but as a collaborative effort with client service, sales, as well as the client. And I think you guys could probably all relate to this, is that change agents are required. This does not happen in a traditional market research industry, a traditional market research supplier perspective. It really requires an appetite to go figure it out and solve the issues and challenges that we're trying to deal with. That's it.
So we have time for maybe one question. Anything? Okay, this gentleman right here.
I was just curious how you promoted the people to actually gather the data. How did you promote the athletes to actually take action?
Oh, we actually combined it into social media as well as having on-site presence. Yeah, so we were combined with their field marketing people who were communicating the messaging about chocolate milk. It was no small effort to communicate it.
Another question?
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
I was just wondering, how important was it to append the information or the qualitative information that you got back to other data sources? So what level of insights did you get from that data being connected?
It's a good question. The reality was that it was experimental, and it provided a level of trust with the client to understand that there were other sources outside of self-reported data that provided context for the client. That competitive set in terms of retail store selection was crucial for them. They wanted to know how many people passed a Walmart in order to go to a Target for candy. So that piece of information definitely was valuable for them.
Any other questions?
Oh.
One more. I know we said we had one time for one, but I'm getting used to this clock thing, so I think we actually have more time.
Do you capture any verbal open ends in the mobile surveys?
We do. We do.
And how do you transcribe? And do you manually transcribe, or do you have an automated text transcription that you can rely on?
You know what? It's not. We don't necessarily capture it through text. It's a combination of the way people respond is text and regular format in the survey. So it's not. It's readable, many times it's client ready.
I'm sorry. Maybe I didn't ask. I wasn't very. So people speak in their open ends?
No. I'm sorry. When consumers text into an open end, it's not necessarily texting. It's pretty readable, so we don't necessarily need to translate that into something different.
Do you ever capture like speaking?
Not yet. No. Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Great presentation.
Thanks.
Okay, we have a short time. If people want to transfer in and out of the room, now is the time to do that. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Patricio Pagani from InfoTools. He's a company director there. And my understanding is that he used to live in Argentina and is now in New Zealand. And we should look forward to the accent. Just for that reason, you got to listen to the talk. He's going to be speaking on Fizzy Visuals, 12 Years of Evolution of Reporting Insights with Coca-Cola. It should be very interesting to hear how you physicified some of those, the data visualization. So, Patricio, please come on up here. Look forward to your talk.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, my presentation is called Fizzy Visuals. When we were talking with our friends in the back, they kept calling it fuzzy. And I may be a bit fuzzy because of the 25 hours that I had to travel to be here, but thanks for having me. What I'm going to be taking you through today is a case study. We heard the previous speakers on the other room talk about the importance of innovation and co-creation as part of innovation. The case study that I'm going to take you through today was about co-creation. We used to do this for Coca-Cola in Brazil, and they came up with something that we couldn't really address at the time. So we started a process of co-creation, which is what I'm going to talk about. We've been working with Coca-Cola. I used to be part of the Coca-Cola company, and I still believe I'm part of the Coca-Cola family. So we know that they've been heavy users of market research. So the teams in Coca-Cola around the world and in Brazil, they use market research information a lot. They use it for their strategic business plan. So every year they spend, when I was there, it used to start around April. And every year they move it a little bit further up the chain. So now it starts about January, the business plan for the next year. So when we're talking about business planning, they spend a lot of time doing this. And then every month they do tactical plans on how to activate ads, etc. So they consume a lot of research to do this. Now, at InfoTools, I moved from Coca-Cola to InfoTools. We partnered with them to help them in this process of heavy consumption of market research information. For 12 years, we've been doing that. So that, you know, which you probably haven't heard about InfoTools before, but we get whatever, think Coca-Cola, they do research in 85, 90 different countries around the world. We take that research that is produced by all their local agency partners, and we harmonize it, and we help them investigate the research and visualize it. So they actually do the analysis themselves. We're not in the data collection, and we're not in the analysis part. We're right in the middle. So they've got quite big teams looking at the data, and we help them kind of pre-bake the cake so that they can do the analysis. Now, 12 years ago, they were a company with almost a single focus. They were focused on fizzy drinks. When I was back in the day in Coca-Cola in Argentina, 95% of our sales were of fizzy drinks. That was all. We had a little tiny water that didn't even feature, but it was mostly fizzy drinks. We had a big research team. So we had a big research team focused on just one product. And we mostly all looked at the same information. Hence, we had a lot of time to interact with the data, which we did a lot. We were usually the main player in most markets we operated in. So this was Coca-Cola 12 years ago. Now, what we used to do for them at InfoTools is help them with that analysis, right? So we got their research and they used our analysis tools to make the best out of this. Now, this was great while it lasted, but over time, those needs have changed. And for those, I presented this presentation before, and for those that said that I'm comparing my clients with monkeys, that is not true. That was me 12 years ago, the one on the left side. Their needs have changed significantly in 12 years. So they've become a total beverage company. They're no longer just doing fizzy drinks. They've got, they play in multiple categories, and they've got innovation projects in a lot of others. So what this meant for them is increased competition. Plus, they had to play challenger, which they weren't used to, in many, many categories. So the need for information and different insights dramatically changed. Now, also, we've been working for them for a long time. I've been running around the world, running workshops with the marketing teams on how you do analysis. But the attrition that they have on the teams kept increasing. So it was hard to keep them engaged. It was hard to keep them up to the level that they needed to do the analysis that we were talking before. And with the changes also, the team reduced. So we were left with only very few research ninjas that could run this analysis. Plus, the new users, the ones that maybe just came on board, they wanted a way to access the data quickly and have it available in their hands. Plus, they wanted visual reads of that information. They didn't want to do the deep-end analytics. They just wanted a couple of pictures or charts that had the results already there. While the analysts still wanted to do the heavy-end analysis at the back end. So those that didn't have time for deep analysis, they wanted to focus on exception reports. So tell me what I need to focus on. Don't make me go through all the analysis to find out. So just to recap what the situation was that led to us co-creating this solution with Coca-Cola. We started having different user profiles. The research ninjas, they still wanted to do the analytics, but the marketing teams and planning teams wanted more interactive visualizations. And the management just top-line reports. And the less engaged, and when I say engaged, they were heavily engaged, but not at the analytic end. They just wanted to see. The less engaged groups required less time analyzing and more taking decisions. Just a single platform where they all access the same numbers. Guardrails, and this was very important, touching on the training aspect that I mentioned before. They didn't get a lot of training, so they needed guardrails so they didn't make mistakes as they were pulling the information. In-your-face exception reports, an online solution because, well, they've got a regionally quite dispersed audience. And also, their executives were on tablets, so this needed to be tablet compatible. So we engaged in this process of, okay, how do we generate this new solution for you guys at Coke in Brazil? And what did they do to help us? So they were heavily engaged throughout the process. This is a slide from them. This is what they did. They first interviewed the users to understand their needs at the very basic level. We together designed what a tool could look like that would satisfy those needs. They went through a process of discovery with the brand teams to identify the users, the metrics that they wanted to follow, the targets, the time periods, and then they went again to them and interviewed them on how they wanted those charts to look like. So this was what they did. And this is the solution that we came up with. Our old tool was called CCV for Coca-Cola Vision, and this one is called CCV Lite because it's a light solution. It's mainly based on a brand point. They've got different brand teams that operate these brands in Brazil. And down there at the bottom, you can see that there are two main entries to this platform. One of them is their big brand tracker, and the second one is a segmentation study that they run. So with here I'm going to stop and move on to a little video that shows you, I couldn't really mask the numbers. We're talking real data of the Coca-Cola company, so I couldn't really mask these numbers to show you what the platform inside looks like. But what you're going to see is a very similar one based on a generic demo that we have. So you're going to see how this works live, hopefully if the video works.
What's your first name? Alec.
Yeah.
I thought that's what it said.
So
I wasn't sure if he said Eric.
this is our visual platform, which we created with Coca-Cola. Well, you've seen it done by an example on the research study, summaries, executive views. It goes quickly, I'm afraid.
Network of things, and I'm going to end up on big data. How's that sound?
So you zoom in into the different charts that you want. The charts are preset for the different teams. So the Coca-Cola team is looking at a completely different chart to what the Sprite team is looking at, or the Fanta team. It has all the stats behind it. So for those that are still interested in the stats, they can go and check them. They can apply the filters that they want. Usually we custom made those filters, so each brand team has their own already preset in the report. And a big component of this as a need for Coca-Cola was sharing those stories that they created. So we worked quite a lot in this sharing, we call it publish and share part. So out of all the different charts that you see, say the Coca-Cola brand manager creates the story, then they add their own commentary, which you will see in a second. So they add their own notes and comments. And then the best part of all, which we wouldn't have thought of hadn't it been for them, is after all this creation of content based on the charts that we publish every month is done, then they want to share it. But they didn't just want to share it through PowerPoint. They did share it through PowerPoint because that was a must-have. So this goes to PowerPoint, and you open your PowerPoint, and you send it through email as you usually do, or you put it on your SharePoints. But so this is what it looks like in PowerPoint. But also, they could share these through mobile and tablet. They wanted to do that, so you can send a static link where you can see these on your tablet, and the users that get these won't be able to interact with it. It's just static. Plus, you can share it interactively, depending on the profile of the user. You can share it so that they can still, rather than see what you've already preset for them, they can still change the numbers or go back to the table or apply further filters. So these were all things that were part of the discussion that we had with Coca-Cola. I'm going to go quickly to the next couple of slides because we had some feedback from the team, the marketing team, which were the users. We co-created with the research team at Coke. this is the feedback we got from their users. They loved the layout, the software was easy to use, and the data is clear to understand. The data extraction was much faster than previously, and they could input straight into the monthly reports, where before they had to do a lot of work before they could get into that. Now, there were some improvement areas, and this is a watch out. They said some indicators were missing, and we needed to go through a new round of discovery to put them in. But something we were very clear up front was we wanted to have a proper briefing process, and we had the buy-in from the marketing director that said, we're not going to change these for another 6 months. So spend the time that you have now to get it right. We're not going to change it for 6 months. We had quite a few users complaining about that, but we told them that up front. This was another slide from them. This was the ROI that was presented to top management in Brazil. So before we did this project with them, they used to spend 16 hours of analysis time to prepare the brand reviews. After this was done, they only spent, on average, 20 to 45 minutes. So there was a 98% time optimization, which they were quite happy with. So this was just an example. We do this work for other clients around the world. I've used this because it was co-creation, and it was how this new product of ours came to life. We do a similar thing for Microsoft. This is how the landing page looks like. Here are all the different areas of Microsoft Business, which get into something similar to what you've seen before. And we do some more work across different industries. So we work with Coke, BAT, SAB Miller, Mondelez, Clorox, hospitality, McDonald's, services, Visa, automotive companies, airlines. Media, we work with Viacom, Orange Telecom, and Microsoft, Device and Congress. And that is my time, and that is me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia. We have a few minutes for questions. Any questions out there? Right here, we have a lady in the front.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, I think.
Hi.
Hi.
Elisa Adams, I'm from Australia, so I sympathise with the 25-hour flight. I'm just wondering how often the data is being updated, how quickly.
Good question. It depends. We've got data streams coming from different clients at different speeds. We've got some data streams that get updated every week. This example that you saw gets updated every month. There are some that are segmentation studies that don't get updated every 2 or 3 years. So it doesn't really matter so long as you've got a piece of research with some shelf life that is going to be seen and used, or needs to be seen and used by different people. Then this is what we propose. So it doesn't really matter. It can be as fast as a weekly period or year.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, in your presentation you talked about building in exception reporting and some guardrails.
Yes.
But we didn't see that. Are those transparent to the users, or did we just not see them in the demo?
Yeah, they are. Well, they're transparent to the user. We've got two user types, right? The research users are usually those that we design these together with. So they're totally transparent to them. The marketing teams, which are the real users of these platforms, they sometimes get consulted, and sometimes decisions just get made for them. For example, if we say, we work on that with the research team, if we say that you're not to look at numbers under 30 responder sample size. That's going to be one of the guardrails of the system, and nobody's going to get consulted on that. That is done. So once you start drilling down, you saw the filters. Once you start drilling down, if you get to lower than 30, the numbers disappear, and you get a warning, hey, you've run out of sample size. Go up. So it depends on who you're asking about. If it's the marketing team, they get consulted on what they want to see to a degree, because we've got best practices. So there are some things that they want to do, or some visualizations that they ask for, which they won't get just because they're bad. And yeah, we've got to find a good way to tell them. But that's usually the process, yes.
Does the platform integrate with other data sources besides traditional survey-based research?
It does, yes. Yes, it does. So it doesn't happen by magic, but we can and we do for some of those clients bring in media data, media consumption, sales, etc.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Cheers.
Great talk.